or UTI is being withdrawn. TDS rate on e-commerce operators is proposed to be reduced from 1 to 0.1%. Moreover, credit of TCS is proposed to be given in the TDS to be deducted on salary. Further, I propose to decriminalize delay for payment of TDS up to the due date of filing statement for the same. I also plan to provide a standard operating procedure for TDS defaults and simplify and rationalize the compounding guidelines for such defaults. Simplification of reassessment. I propose to thoroughly simplify the provisions for reopening and reassessment. An assessment hereinafter can be reopened beyond 3 years from the end of the assessment year only if the escaped income is 50 lakh rupees or more, up to a maximum period of 5 years from the end of the assessment year. Even in such cases, a time limit of 6 years before the year of the search, as against the existing time limit of 10 years, is being proposed. This will reduce tax uncertainty and disputes. Simplification and rationalization of capital gains. Capital gains taxation is also proposed to be hugely simplified. Short-term gains on certain financial assets shall henceforth attract a tax rate of 20%, while that on all other financial assets and all non-financial assets shall continue to attract the applicable tax rate. Long-term gains on all financial and non-financial assets, on the other hand, will attract a tax rate of 12.5%. For the benefit of the lower and the middle income classes, I propose to increase the limit of exemption of capital gains on certain financial assets to 1.25 lakh rupees per year. Listed financial assets held for more than a year will be classified as long-term, while unlisted financial assets and all non-financial assets will have to be held for at least 2 years to be classified as long-term. Unlisted bonds and debentures, debt mutual funds, and market-linked debentures, irrespective of holding period, however, will attract tax on capital gains at applicable rates. Taxpayer services. All the major taxpayer services under GST and most services under customs and income tax have been digitalized. All remaining services of customs and income tax, including rectification and order giving effect to appellate orders, shall be digitalized and made paperless over the next 2 years. Litigation and appeals. While our concerted efforts to reduce pendency of appeals at various appellate fora are beginning to show good results, it will continue to engage our highest attention. To dispose of the backlog of first appeals, I plan to deploy more officers to hear and decide such appeals, especially those with large tax effect. For resolution of certain income tax disputes pending in appeal, I am also proposing Vivad Se Vishwas Scheme 2024. Further, I propose to increase monetary limits for filing appeals related to direct taxes, excise, and service tax in the tax tribunals, high courts, and Supreme Court to 60 lakh rupees, 2 crore rupees, and 5 crore respectively. With a view to reduce litigation and provide certainty in international taxation, we will expand the scope of safe harbor rules and make them more attractive. We will also streamline the transfer pricing assessment procedure. Employment and investment. I have a few proposals to promote investment and foster employment. First of all, to bolster the Indian startup ecosystem, boost the entrepreneurial spirit, and to support innovation, I propose to abolish the so-called angel tax for all classes of investors. Second, there is tremendous potential for cruise tourism in India. To give a fillip to this employment-generating industry, I am proposing a simpler tax regime for foreign shipping companies operating domestic cruises in the country. Third, India is a world leader in the diamond cutting and polishing industry, which employs a large number of skilled workers. To further promote the development of this sector, we would provide for safe harbor rates for foreign mining companies selling raw diamonds in the country. Fourth, to attract foreign capital for our development needs, I propose to reduce the corporate tax rate on foreign companies from 40 to 35%. Deepening the tax base. I have a couple of proposals for deepening the tax base. First, security transaction tax on futures and options of securities is proposed to be increased to 0.02% and 0.1% respectively. Second, for reasons of equity, I propose to tax income received on buyback of shares in the hands of recipients. Other proposals: to improve social security benefits, deduction of expenditure by employers towards NPS is proposed to be increased from 10 to 14% of the employee's salary. Similarly, deduction of this expenditure up to 14% of salary from the income of employees in private sector, public sector banks and undertakings opting for the new tax regime is proposed to be provided. Indian professionals working in multinationals get ESOPs and invest in social security schemes and other movable assets abroad. Non-reporting of such small foreign assets has penal consequences under the Black Money Act. Such non-reporting of movable assets up to 20 lakh rupees is proposed to be depenalized. Other major proposals in the finance bill relate to withdrawal of equalization levy of 2%, expansion of tax benefits to certain funds and entities in IFSCs, and immunity from penalty and prosecution to Benamidar on full and true disclosure so as to improve conviction under the Benami Transaction Prohibition Act 1988. Personal income tax. Coming to personal income tax rates, I have two announcements to make for those opting for the new tax regime. First, the standard deduction for salaried employees is proposed to be increased from 50,000 to 75,000 rupees. Similarly, deduction on family pension for pensioners is proposed to be enhanced from 15,000 to 25,000 rupees. This will provide relief to about 4 crore salaried individuals and pensioners. Second, in the new tax regime, the tax rate structure is proposed to be revised as follows: 0 to 3 lakh rupees, nil; 3 to 7 lakh rupees, 5%; 7 to 10 lakh rupees, 10%; 10 to 12 lakh rupees, 15%; 12 to 15 lakh rupees, 20%; and above 15 lakh rupees, 30%. As a result of these changes, a salaried employee in the new tax regime stands to save up to 17,500 rupees in income tax. Apart from these, I am also making some other changes as given in the annexure. As a result of these proposals, revenue of about 37,000 crore, that is 29,000 crore in direct taxes and 8,000 crore in indirect taxes will be foregone, while revenue of about 30,000 crore rupees will be additionally mobilized. Thus, the total revenue foregone is about 7,000 crores annually. Mr. Speaker, sir, with this, I commend the budget to this august House. Jai Hind.
Item number 2. Number 2.
Sir, with your permission, I rise to lay on the table the following statements under Section 3 of the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management, FRBM Act 2003, medium-term fiscal policy cum fiscal policy strategy statement and macroeconomic framework statement.
Item number 3.
Sir, with your permission, I rise to move for leave to introduce the Finance Number 2 Bill 2024.
प्रश्न ये कि विधेयक को पुनर्स्थापित करने की अनुमति प्रदान की जाए। जो सदस्य इसके पक्ष में हाँ कहें, जो सदस्य विरोध में ना कहें। मेरे विचार में निर्णय हाँ वालों के पक्ष में अनुमति प्रदान की जाती है। माननीय मंत्री जी, अब विधेयक पुनर्स्थापित करें।
Sir, I introduce the bill.
Item number 4.
The Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir budget. Sir, I rise to present a statement, Hindi and English versions, of the estimated receipts and expenditure of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir for the year 24-25.
सभा की कार्रवाई कल बुधवार दिनांक 24 जुलाई 2024 को प्राप्त 11 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है।
There are some innovative new ideas in the budget which will be spoken of, but there are also some financial measures which will have a very negative impact on the stock markets in particular. I want to go across to Harsh Madhusudan Gupta first on the increase in the long-term capital gains tax from 10% to 12%. Adding to the short-term capital gains tax makes sense because you want to cut down on speculative activities. But when the idea has been to push investors into mutual funds, bring them into the markets, why would the government do something like this?
I think the government has also increased the exemption from 1 lakh to 1.25 lakhs. So I think it's a trade-off. I agree that it's an increase on patient capital. Nonetheless, 10 to 12.5% when the markets are booming.
But they won't be booming if you keep increasing taxes in this fashion. Punita Sinha is looking most disappointed. 2.5% of her returns in her portfolio just went out. You'll have to pay more to be...
But you see, I mean, this was what markets were worried about, right?
Yes.
That there would be this tinkering. Is that the reason why the markets are in the red at the moment?
Yeah, because I don't think anyone was talking about an increase in a long-term capital. I mean, there was speculation, but it wasn't something that was widely expected.
No, but this will...
Yeah, so
impact the mood
surprise.
terribly. Why would they do this? I'm trying to understand, Subhash.
Well, I think,
increasing, you've explained that speculative activities are going off. We need to clamp down on futures trading. There's too much gambling happening. That's understandable. This is long-term capital gains tax. You've got it stable at 10%. It's going okay. The markets are doing well. Investors are investing. Why give them this
But I'll just say one thing. Globally, at least in the US, long-term capital gains tax rate is 20%. So India was far lower So maybe there's some rationalization going on to
you know,
bring
if it is broke, why fix it?
That's the point.
Yeah, but the fact is that, the fact is what you said in the morning, right? There were people who the government felt had benefited.
But that's not a long-term capital gains tax. वो एक साल से ज़्यादा hold करना पड़ता है इसको.
Even long-term capital gains tax, there are people who benefited hugely in the last few years. Why should they, at some level or the other, not pay a little bit more? Is the government's rationale?
And our income tax rates are higher than our capital gains
Rahul,
tax.
so I think from the short-term perspective, market, how do they react? It might look to be a terrible move or non-politically correct move from the government's point of view. But if you look at the long-term health and the fair bit of taxation between the labor-earning people and those who earn from capital, I think both the measures, the options, derivatives, as well as raising the long-term capital gains is.
No, but Rajiv Kumar makes an important point. Why fix something which...
This is not fixing, this is fixing for long term. Let me also tell you that the 10% was introduced when I was in the system.
From zero.
And this was very widely criticized. This will also be criticized. But we should move, as Devina was also saying, towards a fair bit of taxation for the long term.
You need foreign capital to come and invest in your assets here. You need household savings to go into financial instruments.
Foreign investors don't pay
Most
taxes.
of the foreign investors don't pay capital gains tax.
Why not?
All sovereign funds are exempt. All foreign funds.
No, but this is about all those who are watching India today at this time, whether they've got direct equity investments or they're investing through mutual funds or through alternate investment funds or through whatever tool they're using to invest, they'll have to pay more tax.
Of course they will.
Yeah, but think about it. I mean, if you get money, put money in a fixed deposit, you pay the income tax rate.
Everywhere
you pay
you pay.
you get capital gains, you're getting lower. So maybe now that the market is more
bond
mature,
interest you pay.
they can raise the levels and rationalize
Plus, she hasn't signaled direction. Is the idea to take it from 12.5 further to 15, 17.5 to 20? I mean, that's deeply problematic.
Say it. Why should they say it?
No, because it will have an impact on the mood in the
You
markets.
may interpret. But if the market interprets it this way, that maybe next year it will go to 15%, it will sell off more. But necessarily that's not a bad
But
direction.
presumably they did this because this was at a time when the markets have been buoyant pre-budget. What you said
They were
earlier
maybe
was
overheating. I mean, the logic could be that the
therefore
markets
this
are
was,
overheating.
This was the right time to do it. You wouldn't want to do it at a time when if you'd gone into the budget over a couple of months where the markets were depressed. You've gone into it where there's already been a pre-budget rally. So you can soften, just think about it in 2004. You remember the famous budget where the markets crashed and A.B. Bardhan, the CPI leader, said, "Bhaad mein jai markets," and everyone judged that budget from the market's perspective. I don't think it would be fair to judge it purely by whether the markets are in the red or not, given the short-term reaction. I think there was much more before.
No, sure.
I think the political aspects of it, for me, have stood out. This was not so much a union budget. At some time, for a while, it was a budget for Bihar and Andhra Pradesh. I mean, we are a country with 28 states, Rahul, and yet all the focus, when it came to specific allotments, is for 2 states of the country. I mean, what's the message there?
No, but
that
that's
the other
not
26
fair.
states
A lot
of
of the
this
scheme
country
was
don't
that
matter.
Purbodaya scheme was for all eastern states, not like they've conveniently clubbed Bihar and Andhra.
The
and of course
specific
that's true.
allotments were very clear for Bihar and for Andhra Pradesh. You speak about tourism, you focus on Bihar. You speak about infrastructure, you give specific allotments to Bihar. I mean, there are 28 states in this country.
I think it was only cleverly called Purbodaya.
Exactly.
But there is nothing for the poor, other poor.
You're being unfair.
I'm being unfair by saying it was Bihar and Andhra Pradesh.
The first and second priorities of this budget and allocation were agriculture and employment and skill development. And a lot of money has been allocated there.
I'm just talking about state-wise.
This is a budget which is with its ears to the ground and not being in denial about those things. I think you should give credit to that.
So you give credit for the fact that they put employment on top, which is great.
Yes.
You give credit for the fact that they put rural infrastructure and agriculture on top, which is great.
On top.
But you should also raise questions, surely, that in a country of 28 states, 29 with Jammu and Kashmir, then only 2 states should figure for such a large part of the finance minister's speech. Is that, I mean, what does it say to the 26 other states of the country? Why not accept that politically he had to reach out to JDU and TDP?
Correct.
If I may just add that some of the points
As you kept saying,
mentioned, the money would be raised through multilateral agencies. So it's not part of the fiscal spend of the government. It will be probably World Bank or Asian Development Bank loans. So to that extent, the political job is also done with without hitting the fiscal aspect of it.
The strongest playing card you can have in politics is to be an ally to a government in minority. You know, you can pretty much swing the government and make them dance to your tunes. Bihar and Andhra Pradesh very clearly.
I would not say it's chancing. They said no to the special category. They said no to the special status.
You've got
They've
special
done it through a back door, halfway there, halfway here.
No, but Bihar and Andhra have got, make no mistake, a much better deal than they would have otherwise.
Well, let's wait for the numbers. Let's wait for the numbers.
We will need to look at the numbers.
Yes, exactly.
Because the kind of package which has been announced, how would the money go for the capital project or for the Polavaram, for others? Is it being allocated? Only at some stage she said grants, but at other places she didn't say either as loan or outside the budget or how. I think we'll need to look at
the details.
So they also mentioned using multilateral agencies. So they did say that, but you know, I thought that the specific allotments were for these two states in a manner.
It's not reflected in the fiscal deficit number.
Sure.
You have still 0.2%.
Which is again a strength of this government.
Exactly.
I mean, when you look at 4.9% fiscal deficit, the government will claim that they've got that completely, they've got their fiscal management completely at least on track.
In long term, this is with reference to what she announced as 4.5, but 4.5 itself is a very high fiscal deficit.
4.9.
No, now 4.9, but the goal of 4.5% itself is a very large fiscal deficit. We, our act says 3%.
Yeah, 3.5, 3.
No, but nobody so far even bothered about the financial.
No. In the first term, it's the same government.
Yes, but now they're making an effort to at least tend in that direction.
That is what I am saying.
To compliment them for being financially
Let's also be
conservative and
fair,
not being
Mr. Garg,
reckless.
given the scale, I mean, one thing that the Modi government has tried to do is put its welfare schemes on scale. I mean, when you talk of 3 crore Awas Yojanas, they've tried in a way to saturate welfare schemes. So naturally there will be some pressure. They've had headroom because of the RBI dividend. The question that I have is, at the end of the day, do you see this as a budget with political messaging or a budget that has set us on the roadmap for the next 5 years or 25 years, as the Prime Minister said? I saw nothing, Rahul, with due regard, to suggest what our roadmap for the next 5 or 25 years is.
Let's take the two big ideas. I want Subhash Garg to come in on the employment-linked incentives. The Congress is saying, "Ye to hamara idea tha." The BJP is saying, "We've brought it, so you know, obviously it's our idea." But the big question is, by giving these incentives to employees and employers, will it actually foster job creation in your view?
So the emphasis on employment and job creation is fabulous.
Yes.
It has to be there, it must be there. But when you go into the contents of it, I think we will need to go more. My sense, the way I read, is that a lot of it is still in the form of giving some PF kind of contributions, which are there for the last 7 years. We have ABRY, before that we another scheme which was doing for last 7 years. So is there a new way?
No, but do they work? So does a financial incentive for job creation work in this fashion?
May not actually work. It adds to the new EPFO numbers, etc., which we see quite often. How would the new internship scheme would act?
No, so I'll come to internships in just a moment.
A friend of mine just sent me a message saying that I think one of the schemes that they've got for employment linked is based on the fact that your first job gets you 1 lakh and more. Now, many of them are arguing, where am I going to...
Up to 1 lakh.
Up to 1 lakh and more.
1 lakh and more. Up to 1 lakh. It is up to jobs that pay 1 lakh.
Up to 1 lakh.
Yeah,
now, the question is that how many jobs eventually will actually benefit from this? How many employers will actually take advantage of this ELI scheme?
That is very important. Does something substitute? Or it's actually a new job?
But even if it substitutes, at least those jobs are now in the formal market.
One goes out, another comes in.
No, but the biggest question, Harsh, is will this limited incentive encourage any employer to add to the number of people he employs because of this incentive that's been given?
To add to Mr. Garg's point, it is possible that instead of informal jobs on the margin, that job might now become a classified formal sector job.
To claim the incentive.
Yeah, but then that helps the employee to get some kind of protections in terms of hiring and firing, some pensions, some at least 2-3 months of cooling off period if they have to, then
the employer will compare the advantages of getting this incentive versus the disadvantage of having this guy formally on his rolls.
Exactly. So it moves the needle.
Why do you think it will work? Because that's one of the big ideas. the employment-linked incentive.
I think
it sounds phenomenal in theory. Does it, in your view, could it work in practice?
No, I think it will work in
Why?
practice. Because the employer for the first time will have the incentive not to hire contract labor, but to hire formal labor on its rolls. I think that's a very big idea. And therefore,
Exactly.
and also the internship, thing, the 3,000 rupees that the government is paying on the internship, I think is again a very good idea because, it will encourage employers.
What kind of internships? So somebody comes and
Rajiv-
interns with any company, they'll get this
The
internship
top-
allowance?
They said 500 companies, and it'll, that
CPSEs.
people come- sorry?
500 CPSEs.
So only for public sector
And
enterprises?
amongst them, at
Amongst
least 500
them
CPSEs.
also the others.
No, how will this work? Just try and explain from what you've understood. How will this
you asked him,
internship scheme?
Rajiv, so it's only the first pay you government is giving.
No,
so
no.
employer has to think about.
The first
No, it's still
timer.
4 years.
I thought it's first year.
The first year.
It's the first year.
First timer.
First timer, first year.
First timer, they will
first
pay
month of the first year.
No, first year.
First year, first timer, first
It's a
year.
very big
Ek time ke liye karoge to nobody will do it. Then what's the
So
point?
in a sense, I think that's the biggest, I think that's what
It's a
the
big
government
deal.
will claim is the biggest takeaway, that they've recognized that there is a jobs challenge.
That's right.
They've recognized that they need to
Correct.
do something for those who have, for both companies